How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow? All right. Hopefully our connection is a-okay. Quality is relatively decent. I hope. But welcome everyone to the Almost Awesome Podcast, the last episode for the year. I know it's cliche to say. It's the last episode of the decade. But yeah, welcome to the pre-show. Right now we just chilling and chatting. Don't know what happened to. Oh, there we go. I guess chat just had to refresh. I had to open up like the list of participants and it just disappeared. But of course we got Cody Pagginson on that mod duty, helping us out, being our voice while we're focused on the podcast. But since this podcast is going to be specifically just me and Matt talking, this episode is going to be more focused towards you guys, the viewers. We're going to try our best to keep it open and just be talking with you guys. I mean, obviously, me and Matt will be talking about whatever topics come to mind. But this is your chance as our audience to be a part of the show. And I guess as a quick sneak peek, one thing I do want to talk about is something I mentioned at the end of the podcast with Ralph. So if you haven't seen that podcast, well, I guess right now you don't really have time to watch it. But one thing I do want to talk about is, like, what goals, if you remember, what goals did you set in the beginning of the year, like the 2019 New Year's resolutions, and have you reached them? Did you forget about them? Are they going to carry over to next year? If you forgot about them or didn't reach them, what do you plan on doing for this upcoming year? So just little things like that. Matt is running a little late. He will be with us shortly. But for now, it's just me on the mic. I do need to refill my water before our show actually starts. So hopefully Matt makes it back, or hopefully he makes it by 9. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully you all had a very Merry Christmas. I definitely did. It was a lot of fun, just the usual hanging out with family and catching up, drinking, playing goofy Christmas games. But yeah, it was nice to just kind of hang out and chill with family again, with like everybody. Like my two brothers. I mean, Matt came from Chicago, and then Mike came from Georgia, and then Ben also came down from Georgia. His sister came from Gainesville. Like, it's just cool, just seeing everybody again. But man, I guess like anybody would be, right? Everybody's kind of looking forward to the upcoming year and what the new year will bring, right? I think everybody talks about what the new year's going to bring, but I think that's kind of like on us, right? For us, like, what are we going to bring to the new year? What are we going to do to make, 2020 our year? If 2019 was such a flop, what do we plan on doing to make 2020 count? And I don't want to get too much into it because I know I'm definitely going to be talking to Matt about it. But it's just something to keep in mind. And like even the small bits that we've talked about throughout the podcast, like setting your goals and, even throughout the next year, throughout 2020. Just always reevaluating your goals and seeing, do they still align with what you currently want, what you currently desire, and stuff like that. And also just like developing SMART goals, right? Where you have like a plan of attack. It's not just some broad like how do I describe it? It's not some broad like random off goal like I'm gonna become a powerlifter. Well, how are you gonna go about doing that, and stuff like that. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, dude. Sorry I was a little late.
No, it's all good.
How's it going?
It's chill. Well, it's not chill. It's actually like super hot. So I have my window open to hopefully get some cool air and hopefully get my sick germs out of here. I have my fan on too. I have 2 fans on.
Dang. Yeah, it's fucking hot in this place.
But I was like, maybe it's also like the Henley, and I was like, maybe it's just like decent, like I was gonna say like anti-cold, like decent material to like keep your body warm. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe it's just this. But
Maybe this Henley is like kind of thicker,
yeah, I was gonna say.
so it's definitely a fact. But I mean, fashion ain't free, man.
Yeah, you gotta suffer a little bit to look good, but it's always worth it.
Dude, so how was karaoke last night?
I woke
I
up
thought
this
you guys weren't gonna
morning.
go.
I woke up this morning and my voice was completely shot, so I was like, okay, pretty good. Well, because they were when I first brought it up, because I was just kind of like reconfirming, like, hey, are we actually still gonna? What's the plan for tonight? Which was obviously yesterday. So they were saying it was like they're still debating about it, and I was like, really? But like after we went to Tori Tori, and then Ashley was like, what do you guys want to do after this? And all of us were like, I mean, Ashley, it's your birthday. You could literally say anything that you want to do, and if it's legal or even just slightly illegal, we'll do it because it's your birthday. So it's your call.
And she wanted to do karaoke.
Yeah, and then we ended up going.
But so what happened originally? Because I thought you said that they didn't want to do karaoke or something, and they just changed their mind.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like, or like, because they were like, oh, we're still debating, and they're like, we'll just go to Tori Tori, and then we'll play it by ear, on like what we want to do. So,
how was Tori Tori?
it was cool. It's like a chill, like bar place. They have food too, but apparently like it gets super busy. So they said they were gonna meet there around like 5ish, and in my terms that means like any time at 5, right? Or around the 5 p.m. hour mark, between 5 and 6. So I end up heading there like pretty late, probably like 5. I get there like 5:30 because I'm like, oh, the place doesn't open until 5:30. So if I'm slightly early, it's not bad. But I don't want to like be waiting around 30 minutes, like if I got there straight at 5. But apparently it gets super busy, which it got busy, like it filled up like really quick.
Really?
Yeah.
On
like
a Sunday?
Within like the first like 15 minutes or so, it looked like it was full.
Wow.
And Limo was like, yeah, this is like pretty slow. I was like, what the fuck? So.
But it was pretty cool. I went there actually while I was here with Kevin. It seemed like a pretty cool bar.
Yeah. And it was weird because they have happy hour on like Sunday. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm cool with that.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Is it like cheaper beer?
Yeah, they had like 2-for-1 beers, or 2-for-1 like half pints beers. So it's kind of just cheaper beer. Like
Yeah.
a whole pint. And then they had and then they had like $6 like some $6 cocktails, which is pretty good.
Ooh, what did you drink?
What's the place? It's called Tori Tori, Cody. I had my first drink was the Bee's Knees, which is like I think it's gin, lemon juice, and honey. It was pretty good. So I had that, and then I had the 2-for-1 beers.
Nice. Double fisting?
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's funny because they fill it to the top. So at like the counter, I was just like, all right, let me sip from this one, let me sip from this one, and then carry it. I was like, fuck, man. I was like, can you just give me a bigger pint? Can you give me a real pint? I just pour it in one.
Cool.
But
nice. Is it? Did you talk to any girls?
no.
You were like with a group of friends though, right?
Yeah. Thought it was a sushi spot. It kind like they have like it's like a bar in a kitchen. It's a kitchen bar. I don't know what I'd call it. Like they have like good they have like good foods where they're like it's almost like snack
Appetizers,
plates.
tapas.
Yeah. It was pretty good. They had like this one thing where it's like I think it's just like charcoal grilled squid. It's like it's a long plate. It's pretty good.
That sounds delicious.
They have like skewers of like different meats and stuff. It's pretty good. Pretty good stuff.
It sounds delicious. I didn't. So you actually got food there? You guys like ate dinner and stuff?
Yeah. They pretty much ordered like a lot of food, and I was like, when I go drinking with them and I also get food, I spend a lot of money. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna drink. I'm not gonna eat. So I was like, let me be smart. I'm already in like super debt.
Oof.
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. How was your night?
It was actually really fun. We went to Cleo. We started at Cleo's, and we caught the ending of the 49ers and the Seahawks game, which was a crazy close game. Me and Ralph like made a bet that like basically losing team like would take 2 shots. And he voted on the Seahawks. I had up the 49ers.
That
Man,
they would win? You bet
I had
the
49ers.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
And like the last, literally, I think they were down by 5. Seahawks were down by 5. And the last drive, they were literally like an inch from the end zone. It was actually a really good game. And then I made Ralph drink 2 tequilas, 2 shots of tequila.
Is that why he texted me last night? It said come, and then the rest of it was gibberish because it's all typos. He texted me this morning. He was like, "Holy fuck! I only typed one word correctly." And I was like, "Don't worry about it, man. It just means you had a good night." I was like, I don't know what the fuck this says.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, we drank a lot. Well, technically, he got kicked out of 2 bars because he was like passed out on the couch.
Oh, true.
It wasn't like anything crazy bad, but
true.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, but it was a good night. Yeah, Cleo's, Shots, and then McQueen's, I think, was the 3 bars that we went to.
True.
And they were pretty cool. Like I'd never been to Shots or McQueen's. I guess they're kind of newish, but yeah, we just drank a lot, caught up. I didn't get Gringos yet though. Apparently, the line was too long, but I don't even remember trying to walk to Gringos.
I feel like Gringos is always super long.
Yeah.
Is there a way for me to refresh my chat? Because I keep trying to see like the participants or like the people in chat, and it doesn't show anybody. Okay, let me exit this. Let me restore this. Okay. Well, again, if anyone is just joining us, since this episode we don't really have a special guest, you guys and gals in chat, technically, are our special guests for the night. So this episode, I guess, like in most cases when we do like an episode like this where it's just me and Matt, most times it's gonna be you guys in chat, your time to shine and be a part of the conversation. Since we don't have a guest, I'll be able to keep an eye on chat a lot better than when we have a guest and everything like that. So if you guys ever want to chime in, whether that's through chat at the moment or even in the comments, feel free, because we're always down to pursue more interesting conversations. It's the whole point, right?
But I'm excited to see how this episode turns out. I feel like I'm also wondering how many people will be there in chat, just because I know it's like holiday week still,
Yeah.
and it's really weird. I feel like for me it's been really weird because Christmas was last week and then New Year's, and it's like in the middle of the week.
Yep.
So my whole timeline has been completely messed up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I kept forgetting that today was Monday. It's been crazy.
Oh, what's up, Andrew? How you doing? Glad to see you stop by.
He made it.
But I will be right back. I'm gonna go refill my water. But I'll leave chat to you, Matt.
What were you talking about, Mark, when I was gone? Did
Kind
you
of
have
like
any cool
the idea of like what we're gonna do for this episode. Like one of the big topics that I plan on talking about is since New Year's is technically tomorrow. Kind of thinking back on like what New Year's resolutions that we set like in the beginning of the year, if you even remember them, and if you have, like, have you reached them? Are you working towards them? If you didn't remember them, what can you do for like this upcoming year, and how can you really change it? Because with the new year, everyone has like their New Year's resolutions. They talk about this and this and that, but really kind of diving into it and seeing like how can we better execute it? How can we make sure like like even just like for me and you as an example, like if we have like some broad goal, mine was like for example, like trying to be a powerlifter. Okay, that's cool. So what are you gonna do about it? Like like almost like making like a SMART goal, right? Where you have the individual steps of how you're gonna get to that end result, and like even coming to the point where you're like, I'm not too sure how to, how I'd get started as a powerlifter. So maybe that the first step is look into what do you need to do? Do you need to qualify for stuff? How do you find out a proper training program and such and such?
Gotcha. Oh, that'll be a cool conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I could talk about that while you go. Well, yeah.
And we'll be right back. Where is that? Is it this one? Is this one? Where's this one? This one.
That's a good question, Andrew. What's your most thought-provoking conversation of 2019? Oh man, that is a really good one. I'll be sure to we'll make sure when Mark comes back we get his take on it too. I thought one of the really cool ones, the one that resonates with me, and maybe it is because it's more recent, was we talked with an old friend. Her name's Kim Estuesta. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. Sorry, Kim, if I butchered your last name. That was a really cool conversation for a couple different reasons. If for the people that haven't seen it, like, or maybe they don't know who Kim is, she's one of our friends that we met mainly because we had like a big little program in our Filipino Student Association, and my outing was dating her, so we kind of met that way. But because of that, that made like the episode really cool, because I felt that I didn't know her or had never like actually sat down and had like a real conversation with her before. So that like it was a good, to me, like challenge, because it forced me and Mark to go a little bit outside of our comfort zones of this podcast as a whole. But then we also got into a lot of really cool topics that were pretty deep. Like we talked about, do we believe like in the concept of having a purpose in life, like having a calling, all this stuff. And it was really interesting because Kim's background, she's a graphic designer for GitHub, I think. I think that's where she works now. Um, but she's a graphic designer, and then I'm like coming from the perspective of an engineer, and it's kind of cool seeing how it was cool seeing how our worlds like aligned in the way we thought. Um, but it was definitely a good episode. I'd highly recommend it. I believe that was episode 24, I think. Mark, do you remember what episode Kim's was?
That
Let me
sounds
see.
about right. I need to scroll through. Yeah, that was 24.
Mm,
I was
yeah.
definitely hoping. I was like, I hope I numbered this one correctly.
Yeah. So that was a really cool podcast. Um, yeah, just I think the main thing, the three reasons why, if I had to summarize this little spiel, was like that the point that like Kim wasn't that close to us, but we were able to really have a meaningful and deep conversation. Uh, Two was like just getting her perspective on things. I think was really cool, and I think it was interesting. It was nice because we were able to like, even though it felt like all three of us had different viewpoints, we were all able to kind of share and bring them all together and see how they all kind of aligned in their own way, or like we're part of who we are, and that's why we see it this way. But it wasn't like arguing. It felt more like we were just kind of sharing how we think. So that was a really cool effect.
Yeah, it's like a more of a discussion than like a debate, right?
Hmm.
Where I guess like based on like what we were talking about, it's not so much like uh, your way of thinking is incorrect, and I'm here to show you the correct path, kind of thing. So like that in itself allows for, you know, calmer talk. I guess I would say.
Hmm. So that was a cool one. What about you, Mark? The original question that spurred this whole thing was Andrew asked, "What's your most thought-provoking, almost awesome conversation of 2019?" More specifically, what challenged you or changed your perspective on something the most? Like, what episode had the best takeaway?
I mean, if I'm gonna be sneaky about this, the most thought provoking, almost awesome conversation of 2019 was just our talks about doing the podcast.
Mm,
If I'm gonna be
damn.
if I'm gonna be sneaky about it, because the phrasing of the question didn't say which episode was, but like it,
Sure.
like even just thinking back on it, like there's been so much like work that we've put into this podcast, and it's so cool to just see like how it's grown compared to like when we first started doing it and stuff like that, and where we're at now. And it's kind of terrifying to see where we're gonna be, you know, at the end of 2020.
Mm,
Where it's, I guess, not really terrifying. It's more of just exciting and just unknown of like where our direction is gonna go. Because like we said in other podcasts, you know, or on other episodes, as we keep going, we're just gonna have to keep asking ourselves, you know, is this the direction we want to keep going with the podcast? Is there a different way we want to go? Because for all we know, you know, we could make a whole like U-turn midway through 2020, and our conversations could be of like a whole different topic and stuff.
that's pretty cool. It is kind of crazy how much this thing has grown. And I guess it's been what? It must have been 27 weeks by now, right? If we're on episode 27, give or take. I'd probably say 20 weeks more so, right? Because I feel like we started to change this at episode 7, I think.
I don't
Um,
think it was that early. I think it was later, to be honest. I want to say maybe like 12, 13.
hmm. So then I guess it's been like 3 or 4 months, probably. That sounds about right.
Because I stopped numbering them because I have like a notepad where I have them all. I have them like dated and like who was there. Let's see. So Dave was 21. This is 20, 19, 18, 17, 16.
Yeah, 3 months ago.
15, 14, 13, 12. 11:10. Because I guess like our first episode of like I guess the rebuild of the podcast was with Javid, and that should be episode 10 if I'm counting correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. So it's been like 3 months about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty awesome. Like, it's really cool seeing an idea come together and start to really take shape. And I mean, it does take a lot of time. So I'm really, I think, what'd be cool is next year we should rewatch this episode, like, before the end of 2020 and see how much we've changed from then, or I guess now to then.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Even like midway through the year, just to see.
Yeah. Oh man, a 6 month reflection would be cool. How are we doing? Like, are we even like, where do we have? Like, yeah, it'll just be really crazy to see, especially because that's like double the amount of time we've started working on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, to see how much it can evolve to that point will be really, really cool.
Oh, speaking of changes in the coming year, I guess we'll talk about it later to confirm it. But our live time is more than likely going to change within the next probably the next week, to be honest. I'm having like big schedule changes, so I won't be able to do the podcast Monday nights. But I guess since we do have some chat, I was considering doing like a Sunday night-ish, maybe like Sunday at, I don't know, 8 or 7.
Earlier Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Just because
That's
I feel like
pretty cool.
most Sundays are like kind of like a chill, wind down sort of day. Not many people I would say make plans like in the evening of Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's a nice way to like kind of just get our show
Unwind.
organized and like make sure like we're able to get guests during a convenient time, and then
Yeah.
you can view it anytime during the week.
That'd be pretty cool. But before we start, I know it's like a minute away. I'm gonna go grab some water real quick.
Yeah, go do your thing. Uh-oh. There we go. Focus. Oh, man. Uh-oh. What's going on? There we go. So tonight, no alcoholic beverage for me. Sticking straight to water. Because I gotta save up. And be ready for ringing in the new year. Hopefully not blackout drunk. But, we'll see what happens. But with that being said, I hope that all you guys and gals out there have a really fun New Year's Eve, but be safe. Have a blast, but be safe. Don't drive drunk. Get a DD. Uber. Do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do to be safe. Oh man, like messed up my wrist working out today.
Really?
Yeah, I was doing like dumbbell work instead of like barbell stuff, and I'm used to using. I think like I got used to using wrist wraps, just because my form, like when I go heavy for bench press, my wrists like bend back.
Yeah.
So I think because I was just using dumbbells, where it's it's free range, and I wasn't using my wrist wraps, like just instinctively just maybe went back. May have been from like dips or something too, but we'll see if
Dang, that
it's
sucks.
we'll see if it's shitty tomorrow. All right. Last call for water, bathrooms, bathroom
I'm
breaks.
good to go.
Anything else? All right. Give me 1 second to go ahead and get this show on the road.
Hit him with the ad. Oh, I forgot we don't do that anymore.
Unfortunately, we can't. I don't know how to. I don't know how to do it on YouTube. I don't think I can. Unless I don't. Does YouTube partners? We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
2020.
Cool. All right. Welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Almost Awesome Podcast. We're on episode number 27. Unfortunately, the last podcast episode of 2019, the very last, and oh, how far we have come. We were talking about it earlier. I believe our first episode of our new and improved format started in around October, maybe even slightly earlier than that. And it's been a fun and amazing journey so far. Of course, welcome, Matt. I forgot to do our typical introduction. I didn't want to leave you just sitting there.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. As usual, I am here as well, your co-host. But yeah, it really has been pretty crazy. 3 months to think that we didn't. This was basically just an idea, and then now we are 27 episodes in, which is crazy. It's like how many episodes fly by. Like it's amazing when you're in the podcast. Time flies by, but even like when you're taking a step back and now looking at it from a bigger picture, it's really insane about how far we've come. But it makes me really, really excited for 2020. I think this podcast has been a good part of my 2019. Like not only doing it, but I feel like the things we learned from it have actually changed some of the ways I think. I feel like some of the way I talk with people changed a lot because of the podcast. So I'm excited for like the personal growth that we've been getting. At least that I feel like I've been getting from this podcast. I'm excited to see how it pans out even further going into 2020.
True. And for those of you who are actually in chat today while we're live, since we don't have a guest tonight, technically you all in chat you guys are our guests. Our I don't know.
You are our guests.
Y'all the guests. Done. Got it.
Yeah. There we go. Nailed it.
So most of the topics that we're going to be talking about are going to be kind of like open-ended, and hopefully you guys in chat, whether you're just lurking and you just want to listen to the conversation, but if you have the inkling to want to jump in and be a part of it, this is definitely your chance to share in the limelight. Since we don't have a guest, I'll be able to better monitor chat and keep an eye and check out any like cool discussion questions you may have, or even just like comments, responses to the stuff that we're talking about. But I guess to go ahead and kick us off, since we didn't really have a poll question, unfortunately, like, you know, just with the holiday season, things have been kind of like a mess, and I feel like we're just like stumbling to get to the end of the year. But with that being said, with it being the end of the year, my first question I'd like to ask everybody who's watching, whether you're here live in chat or you're watching the video later, feel free to comment if you want to be a part of it too, is thinking back on the year, thinking back on, you know, our 2019, our New Year's resolutions or goals that we set for 2019. How far have you gotten with those goals? Have you reached any like big milestones that you had planned, or have you reached any milestones that are worth celebrating? Whether that's personal growth, whether that's, you know, growth in like your job, or, you know, a new perspective on life. But what has 2019 given to you that you're going to carry on towards 2020?
While I I can start, Mark, if you don't mind. I'm assuming if people in chat will chime in as we go. Um, but for me, it's actually pretty funny. When I started 2019, um, I actually had this idea to. I made like a goal Excel spreadsheet. I called it my goal tracker, and then I like had five sub one, two, three, four, uh, five like goals that I wanted to work on. Sorry, I'm like pulling it up while we speak. Um, so like my five ones were write a book, read 100 books, um, refine the goal tracker because what I wanted to do was like make it like a process, like something that I do regularly. Um, I put like manage my finances better. So like develop like a system around how I manage my finances, all of that, and really have like a outline not only for what I have currently, but also like what I want to be saving for in the future. Um, and kind of like break it down into numbers so that I can hit like the goals and kind of like basically I wanted to sit down and do all the math to figure out where my money's going. Um, and then the last one, and this was like more of a stretch goal kind of thing, but I wanted to look into, and I know you mentioned pre-show, like yours was like become a power lifter. Mine was like look into becoming a life coach because I thought that that would be really cool. Um, and it's funny because like the way you described it, like your process, like the very first thing was like I didn't know how to do it, but the first thing I did was like, how do you become a life coach? It was like the very first Google thing I had. So then like what I started to do was I like have all those five goals, and then I had two things. I had one sheet where I would fill it in daily. So then if I worked on a goal, I would track it here. So if I read a book or read like part of a book, I would like basically do a tally sort of thing. So
Mhm.
I could track goals on a daily level. Um, but yeah, and then like I tried to fill it out all throughout the year, and I think it worked out pretty well. Like, um, but I feel like the process itself I could refine it a little bit better. I think that's where it'll be cool bringing it into 2020 and seeing how I can improve this thing. Will be fun.
Yeah, I think that's cool that like it's. I guess like even like Neil talking about it a bit in chat, like setting like financial goals or like you said, like keeping track of your finances. Like that's hopefully that's like a lifetime sort of thing, right? Like you should always be. It's finances are gonna be a part of your life, throughout your life, hopefully. Um, so it's cool to see that it's like you said, it's just going to be an ongoing process. Like when you first started, it's kind of messy, a little inefficient, but like everything else, you got to get started somewhere, and you just slowly grow, progress, and keep getting better and better at it, and then it just becomes almost just like second nature that you're
Hmm.
able to keep track of your finances in a well organized fashion.
Hmm. Yeah, and like for me, it was all about starting the process, like basically defining what it looks like and like building in my routines for, managing finances. So like how often do I check my bank account, or like how often will I update everything? How often will I like check my investments and see am I on track, or do I need to shift things around? Do I need to save more? Do I need to pay more stuff off? And
Mm-hmm.
like building it into more of like a schedule. So like it's like every Sunday, that's like one of the things I look at, and then every like first of the month and 15th of the month, like I'll look at it as well, and just make sure everything's like on track and everything's like sorted out. Um, so then, like going into 2020, it's like not something I have to have as a goal anymore because now it's just part of my process.
True, true.
But yeah, so that's been a fun it's been a fun journey for sure. Um, but how about you? Like what were your 2019 goals?
So obviously a big one. If you guys haven't figured out from just watching me talk about things on the podcast and different episodes and how I relate everything to the gym and working out, um, me and my friends we set up some um, just like workout goals or like a group to help motivate each other to go work out and just a method to uh, keep ourselves accountable. where um, I guess for me, um, when if someone's like, hey, I did this workout, I worked out this is the sets and reps, the weights, blah blah blah, and if they ask me what did you do and I have nothing to say, I just feel bad. I'm like, all right, well now I gotta go to the gym. I gotta go to the gym so I can post about it and say, hey, this is what I did for the day. And originally, I think I would believe it's like most guys who want to go to the gym. It's just a drive to attract a mate, a drive to become more physically attractive. And I know it was funny because actually in the beginning of the year too, that's when I like got back into dating. So those two kind of lined up together where I was like, okay, so I'm working out to impress girls. So now let's see, is it really working or not? But we can go on about dating in a different path. But for working out and stuff, midway through the year, I honestly I don't remember exactly when I want to say it was actually kind of fairly recent. I was kind of droning on, and working out is it's getting boring, I would say. Where I'm just doing the same thing day in, day out, and it's like, okay, I have this general goal of trying to be impressive to ladies, but then, everybody has their own taste in a suitable partner. So it seemed wishy-washy, where I was just like, I don't know, is this enough to drive me to keep going to the gym? So me and BJ had talked about it, where we both kind of felt the same way, where we go to the gym enough where it feels like it's routine, right? Where it feels weird that we don't go, but when we're there, the drive kind of isn't there to be like, all right, let me push farther, let me try to go like beyond my limits, right? Where you're just like, you kind of just do it to do it, and you're not really like, it was almost like we're not really growing anymore. So we thought of the idea of, hey, let's set a goal, just shoot it up in the sky, and we'll see what happens, right? So let's go into powerlifting, because for both of us, the feeling of reaching a new PR always feels so good. So we're like, let's try to train for like powerlifting. Let's work on there's a three basic big lifts: bench press, squats, and deadlifts. And that kind of refreshed our mindsets and gave us new purpose to working out. And it was funny because me and BJ had talked about it, where like even just looking back, we were like, hey, if we never set that goal of trying to become powerlifters, we probably would have never squatted more than 225. I definitely would have never deadlifted 315 if I never set that goal of trying to be a powerlifter. I would have been cool just like deadlifting like 200 or something. So it's cool to see like just kind of how that goal, redefining that goal of just working out into something that was more interesting to me at the time, just sparked so much growth. And even now, we had talked about it where we're like, maybe this isn't the best idea. Maybe we don't go into powerlifting. But we do like the idea of still like reaching new PRs and doing stuff like that. But it's funny that when we're trying to push for new PRs, me and BJ just keep getting injured. We get like slight injuries, so we're like, oh dang, this is a weird setback.
Yeah, it's
so
a whole other set of problems.
Yeah, so even now we're like, okay, maybe it's time to take the step back and redefine the goal again, and figure out what are we gonna do from here on out.
That's super cool. I love like at its core, what you're doing hasn't changed, but what you did was you shifted your perspective on why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like another way to look at it and make it exciting and make you want to do it again. Because I feel like that's so much of like part of the process is convincing yourself that you want to do it, because like you need that drive, because it isn't always easy to keep showing up day after day after day after day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's super cool. It sounds like, and I love that you also took you didn't just blindly go into powerlifting. You got like even now you're starting to think like, huh, maybe it isn't exactly powerlifting, but I like these things about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea of like having PRs and continuously breaking them, and like it's like that system that you needed to develop because of what you thought your goal was, and like now you're taking it and like making it your own.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can keep like again, it's like going back to what you originally wanted to do is like work out and finding a reason why and a drive to do it. I think that's huge. Um, so I thought that's
But BJ, not to disappoint you, so I put it out there. I told BJ, all right. So I've reached 750 for my big lifts, where the total weight I can lift for my big three is 750, and I was like, if I can hit 1,000 at my body weight, which will be like around 130, if I can hit 1,000, then I'll go for a powerlifting competition. But until then, I'm still going to be training. I'm still going to be doing the usual workouts where the desire for reaching the PRs is still there. But
Yeah.
to really, I guess it was like to really invest in it and like pay for like the competition, the registration, and all this other nonsense. It was like we came to the thought process where it's like, how much money would you put down on yourself to win the competition? Like it's cool. It's cool to just go, right? It's like when we talked about with BJ, like going into tournaments, right? It's cool to participate and go, but let's just say if the tournament entry was $200, are you gonna pay $200 to just kind of like go in without any practice? You know what I mean? So that's why I was like, you know what? Let me make sure, like, let me set something like absurd where I even like looked up world records for stuff, and I was just like, if this is I know it's the world record, so it's the top, like the elites of the elite. But I was like, if I can't get anywhere close to this, where it's like maybe 200, 300 pounds less than like the world record, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't put $200 down on me doing well in this competition.
That makes sense. And I mean, at the same time, it's like you want to make sure that you put enough time into it, so you're not just. There's like an efficiency portion of it. Like it almost doesn't make sense to just do it and then like lose, especially when it's that expensive, given
Yeah.
like all of your scenarios and all your situation. Um, but it's cool because like you just gamify it a little bit, and you're just says like you say like I got to get to this point. I got to get to 1,000. Um, like that weight is that what was the term? How did you call it?
It's like a 1,000 pound like weight goal where I
Yeah,
can lift 1,000 pounds divided between the three big lifts. So it's like what,
big lifts.
330
Yeah,
between each,
that's cool.
340 ish,
S-
which is
So
kind of
you
nutty.
just hit seven. You just hit 750 recently.
No, I guess because honestly, the last time I maxed out, I messed up my low back pretty bad, pulling
Uh,
315 for deadlift. So I was like, okay, I can't max out. But because of it, I've actually been doing a lot of like research and figuring out like different ways or better ways to train, as opposed to just kind of like, let's just max out every day, every time because we feel
mm,
like it. Because it's like, no,
mm-hmm.
you're just destroying your body. And if you do it every
Ah,
week, you don't give your body enough time to recover. So that's why you
yeah.
become more and more prone to injury. So
Mm,
even with that, I've been like looking up like, all right, what's a better way to train so I
that's
can
cool.
keep pushing for the PRs and stuff.
Dang, that's really awesome. I feel like so much of it is like learning more about the process or like these things that you would have probably never looked up before if you never had this goal in the first place. But because of it, just in general, you're gonna work out better, healthier, safer, all across the board. So that's really sick. I feel like I was started to get distracted a little bit because I feel like we have some really good things in chat. Um,
You'll go for it.
I feel like it'd be. Let's see, what was the last one? I'll start in the beginning, which I think is Neil mentioned this. Is
Oh,
like it
your
sounds
webcam.
bad, but the
Your
only
webcam.
goal and plan. Oh, is it too far up? Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay, you're good.
Did you see my disgusting ceiling?
No, it's just the bottom of your chin and the rest.
Oh, sorry, sorry,
No, you're
sorry.
good. You're good.
Anyways, so Neil said, sounds bad, but the only goal and plan I had this year was Marathon Game of Thrones to catch up to the finale, but I did it. It helped me appreciate spreadsheets and deadline dates too. It's funny because like what you learn from things like that, although the goal sometimes sounds like it doesn't sound like it's a serious goal, it doesn't sound like it's going to make you a better person or whatever, but you still like learn from it. And I think that's huge is like the idea of deadlines and how you can use them to your advantage. Because I feel like it's when you're doing stuff professionally, everything has a deadline. That's just how it is. And because of it, it's sometimes, at least for me too, like me even, it makes me feel hesitant to set deadlines for my personal life because I like the flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like undeniable the power of having a deadline on something.
Yeah.
Even though you're not always going to hit it, just putting that date in the ground, it's so important because it again like makes you accountable and it makes you
Yep.
like almost worry about this thing,
Mm-hmm.
which like you need it. It's like a healthy push. So I think that's super cool that like not only did you accomplish the goal, but like you learned like that portion of it. I think that's huge. Um, and like just understanding that it's good to set deadlines for ourselves even. Um,
And
I think that was
spreadsheets are king, man. I use spreadsheets for
spread.
like my workout logs. Since like even when I
Mhm.
first started working out, like my trainer would be like, "What are you doing on your phone?" I was like, "Oh, I just have like I literally just list all the workouts, all the exercises I'm gonna do. I have spaces for the weights, the reps, and like I've just always done that. So even just like going back to the accountability, when I go into the next week, I can look back on the previous week and be like, all right, where did I start at, and can I go up 5 pounds? Can I go 10? And just see like the growth from there.
Yeah, but there was a couple other ones. Um,
I know Andrew was saying he didn't have any like resolutions, but in 2019 he wanted to become more independent. Part of that climb was finding a career that would allow him to live independently. Not 100% there, but making progress, and that's good. Like I think we talked about it in like Tati's episode, where we kind of have that deadline of like the year, right? Because it's the big change where you know the digit of the year is going to be different. So we should accomplish our goals within like the year, right? But there's no need for us to really set that as like our bar, right? But I think it's good to like um, kind of recall your goals and see where you're at, and again, like we always talk about, just see if that goal still aligns to what you want. And now, looking back on it, hopefully you have a new perspective on it, and maybe a better way, a fresh mind to figure out, oh, how can I get there? How can I become um, more independent? What small steps can I do to become more independent? So best of luck
mhm.
to you, Andrew, and I hope you keep us in the loop with your goal and your journey.
Yeah. And I think this is cool because on the other end of the spectrum, I think what Cody said is really interesting. Um, is like the concept of simple goals. So like he wants to do like 50,000 steps per week, cooking at least 3 times a week, reading at least 30 minutes per day, things like that. I love those kind of goals too. Like you kind of need a mix of both. Like to live more independently is kind of like the vision or the dream,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like the simple, really easy to measure things or like how you get there sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. And I love that like when you put a number to it, sometimes it can literally be arbitrary or sometimes it can mean something. But again, it's another way to hold yourself accountable, which I think is cool. And I think Cody mentioned like he's trying to like measure them a lot more and track them. I think that's really awesome because um, at least something that I struggled with a ton was I didn't know how much time I was actually spending on the things on my goals in a week. And then there would be certain weeks where I felt like, man, did I do anything like productive this week? And I like would spend more time beating myself up about it than like kind of celebrating my successes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to realize that once I started to track everything a lot more, like how often I actually do read, or you know, how often I even write and I practice writing. And it was cool to me because I can like see that growth and I can see that like just telling myself, hey, I got to do this every day helped me like build it into my process. Again, it like what's really cool about this is when you do it this way, like you start to build them into habits.
Yep.
And I think that's really like key to success is like having a lot of really strong habits or processes in your life where you don't even realize it, but you're building towards success. And I think that's like super huge. So I love that the idea of simple goals or something that you can measure and track actively. Um,
And I
so thanks.
like, oh, and I like what you said, like where when you don't accomplish like a big goal, you kind of spend too much time like beating yourself up about it for not reaching it. And I feel like that's something that everyone can kind of work on a little bit. I think um, we all kind of tend to have like a stigma for failure, or like just the fear of failure like prevents us from like moving and like even just like reaching our goals, where it's just for example, like Cody's example of reading 30 minutes per day. Sometimes you just don't have time in the day, and then you look back, you're like, dang it, I can't believe I didn't like try to read for 30 minutes. I didn't read at all. And then you just kind of get down into a mindset as opposed to um, kind of being okay with it, right? Like if you don't do it today, all right, unfortunate, but we can do it tomorrow. Or like even just having the mindset of, let me stop beating myself up about it, but let me do it tomorrow. Let me make sure I can do it tomorrow. You don't have to do double to make up for it, but let me get started. And like you said, let me start building that habit where it just becomes normal, and I can increase it once, it becomes so consistent that I don't even have to be like, oh, I got to remember to read. I got to remember to put time away to read a book or something.
Mm.
So I think I know for sure that's something I need to work on too, where it's just sometimes when you set the goal too high, it just becomes so tough to reach that you no longer get the sense of progress, right? You just feel the defeat of not reaching the bar up there. So sometimes you just gotta set a little bit lower so you achieve it. And like everybody likes to win, right? Everybody likes the small win, the victory of being like, yes, I did it, I did this. So I think that's also something important too. Just not beating yourself up for not reaching your goals, and making sure you celebrate all the victories that you get, whether they're small, whether they're big. Everything is worth a round of applause. And don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. Because like I think I read a book on this recently. It's called Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Basically, like the whole concept of this book was like where there's like two type of games. There's finite games and infinite games. Finite
Mm-hmm.
games are like basketball or chess, where it's like a clear objective. You just do this thing and you win or you lose. And then his argument is like we live in a world that's like infinite games, where it isn't like a winner or loser. The point of the game is to keep playing.
I
And
like
like
that.
me, it's just like goals. Is like the point of goals is like to keep doing, like. And I think for me, what ends up happening is when I beat myself too much, when I beat myself up too much about like not doing a goal, it has the effect of making me feel like, oh, I can just give up on this thing because I failed. Like, well, I'm just gonna stop.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of it isn't that. It's like just to keep working on it and like chipping away at this thing, whatever it is you're trying to change or improve or build in your life. And when in order to get in that mindset, I had to change how I think and like become more positive about things, and look at it more from like that pat on the back or like, yo, I'm doing a good job. Like I know I can do more, but everyone can do more. Like
Mm-hmm.
as long as I'm still doing, I'm happy. And like that was a big shift in my mindset for sure. I feel like in 2019, um, that has helped me out.
Yeah, I know. I was talking with Neil earlier, and he was like, "Do you guys have?" There's like a small group of us. He was like, "Do you guys have any goals for like the next like 30 days?" And I was just like, for most of 2019, I've just been focusing on like the physical aspect of me. Obviously, just my physical appearance, whether that's buying fitting clothes, buying clothes that I don't feel comfortable in, but I look hella nice in, and
Mm.
learning, sometimes you gotta take a little bit of suffering to look good. Um, but instead, for 2020, instead of just focusing on the physical part of me, really work on like the mental or emotional side of myself, where um, I think you've mentioned it before, like just setting small positive affirmations for yourself, and just kind of repeating it to yourself, even like before you go to bed, so it becomes ingrained and you really start to believe, something as simple as like, oh, I'm a good person, I'm a good friend, and then just keep finding, like, once you truly believe it, go on to the next aspect, and just really kind of build up the positivity. I know, like, everybody's their own harshest critic, but I think there are a lot of times where I go way too far with it, and just kind of like, the way I explained it to Neil was, let me reverse that mental strength of me being able to easily put myself down, and like imagine like how positive I could be if I could just flip that, instead of being super negative and convince myself so easily about all the negatives. If I could do that for my positivity, then holy hell, but just finding the small steps, and first one is just really, really believing in the small positive affirmations that you can believe in about yourself, and that'll eventually grow and grow and grow.
That's cool. I love that concept of basically like becoming your own biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's super important, and I think it's a really cool process, because it's like two sides of it. It's like, first portion is like shifting that mindset, because I think, like you mentioned, it's so easy to think of things negatively or assume the worst about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
The real challenge is like finding the positive in everything and like looking at all these good things. But I think it's twofold. Is like, once you start seeing yourself in that light, you start doing more things to to make yourself appreciate yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I want to start cheering myself on, I want to work out more, or I want to read more because I want to be smarter. I want to like get better at conversation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I started to get this like shift of like, who's the person I want to be, and then let me start doing things that person does, or that I think this person does, and then I will naturally start to like love myself more because of it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like this mix of like doing both of these things at the same time, because otherwise, if you don't love yourself, like, you're not going to want to keep improving yourself. And it's like vice versa. Like, if you love yourself but you're not doing anything, you're not really going to love yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I think it's it's two battles. It's like this physical mental shift, or like, it's like a physical aspect, like doing things, and the other thing is like shifting your perspective
Mm-hmm.
to think the right way. So that's super cool. I think that's a really cool goal. Um, and I feel like not a lot of people think that way. Like, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people start with just what are the physical things that I can do uh, to like get better at something. Like, maybe it is like run more or work out more, but like, not a lot of people spend time changing their perspective, or like consciously working on their perspective and how they think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really cool. I think it's a really good to have. So I respect that.
But now I just gotta keep myself accountable, right, and make sure I'm actually doing it.
hmm and that's the hard part about those type of goals, because it becomes really hard to measure.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to figure out like how you measure it yourself, I think, and that becomes a huge portion.
Just go back to spreadsheets, man. Log it in a
Yeah,
spreadsheet. This
yeah,
was the affirmation for the day, and by this date, do I really believe it? What did I do to
mm,
prove it?
yeah,
Boom, boom, boom. Then we go next.
yeah. That's sick. That would actually be pretty sick. And then like, I think the really cool thing about the spreadsheets are, I've loved this concept of like documenting more things about my life, about how I think about everything, because I think it's really cool being able to look back at it and see two things, like all the work you've done, but also saying like, man, these are the things that I struggled with in 2019, and like now I've owned these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just part of who I am. I think that's super cool. I love the ability to like reflect and do it through something that I created myself, whether it's like writing, whether it is a spreadsheet, and not just me thinking back, because depending on my mindset in the moment, it's unreliable, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in a good mood, I'll only think of the positive things, or if I'm in a bad mood, I never did enough. And I'd rather not rely on my mood when I have to reflect. I'd rather like have something as a baseline foundation for it.
Yeah. I feel like it's tough to keep track of your overall progress when you just kind of view it day by day, and like the concept of documenting it, right, and like having that proof of, oh, this is where I was when I first started. Like even like I guess for me, like working out and like I guess like my physical appearance, because I mean I see myself every day, like I don't really notice any big changes. And we talked about it before when we pulled up like old videos of just like us, and we're just like, holy shit, man! Like we changed a lot. I lost a lot of weight, and like I was looking back at like my old like my calorie counting app, and it still had my initial like what how much I weighed. I was like, man, I was like 150. I'm like 130 right now. I was like, damn, okay, guy,
That's
I see
awesome.
you. I see you doing work.
That's sick.
So it's super helpful to see, like, have a sort of way to document your progress, or just see like where were you at and where are you now, because like you said, like when you think back on it, it's hard to really retrace those steps without having some sort of like documentation, whether you wrote that down on a notebook, logged it in on a spreadsheet, or even just like losing weight, like having like the before and after of like, just like instead of thinking of it day by day or just weighing yourself on the scale and seeing the number go down one at a time, it feels so much better when you think about it month by month or even year by year, and you just see like the drastic change there. So it doesn't feel, I think it's like you have more of a sense that you're growing, you're progressing towards your goal, as opposed to just seeing it, the small incremental steps, because it always builds up, right? And sometimes it's hard to just look back and see, like turn back around and be like, man, I came really far from where I was.
Yeah, I think seeing that transformation is huge, and I, I love it because to me it inspires you to go further. It's like looking back and realizing, man, I've come so far, and I have a far way to go, but I know I'm gonna make these strides. It's like an affirmation, and to me, it's its own form of affirmation. It's like saying, man, it was worth pursuing this goal, and sometimes it's even like, man, it was worth not pursuing this goal, like giving up on some.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's really cool because at the end of the day, it like helps you realize what's important and what you want to be focusing on. And I think that's really huge, is like having a set of things that you're focused on improving.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, to me, that's like half the battle. Instead of doing everything almost mindlessly without a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we lose a lot of opportunity to improve, is what I will say. But yeah,
So
2019 has been a good year.
so I have a question, and this is gonna be, again, open ended to everybody, but to kind of narrow it down and give us a little bit more specificity. Because I'm interested to see how our viewers have grown from our podcast. Is can you think of things that you've taken away, or that you've grown throughout like the process of doing the podcast? And I guess for me and Matt, it may be kind of biased because we're here every single podcast. And I'm not saying that none of you guys are keeping track and watching every episode. And if you are, then you're right there with us. But I guess for the viewers, and even for you, Matt, can you think of like some either big or small things that have changed, either like your perspective, your way of thinking, from like watching the podcast and just hearing people's thoughts and points of conversations?
Yeah, I could go. Hopefully, we'll see some chat pop in here. My biggest takeaway, I think, and I think it's been super huge. It's been really apparent to me this recent trip to Orlando, um, is this idea of like when you're talking with someone. I learned this from the podcast because like you mentioned, it's me and you in it every week, but it's like being present when you're sitting there talking with someone. And I think it's really hard. It's really hard to notice unless you start doing it. But to me, it's like when you're really in the present with someone, you can feel your conversation flow. Um, it became really, really apparent to me in this podcast because like we're having these deep conversations, but I also know when my mind naturally wanders elsewhere, either because I have other things that are worrying me or because I'm looking at chat. Like I, you can like feel the conversation, like the level of conversation diminish a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that was something that I feel like I really learned in this podcast is like when I'm having a conversation with someone that I want to enjoy and that like means something to me, I have to be there in the present with that person. And I think that's like it it was interesting because I guess before it's really easy to be thinking about other things while you're talking to someone. It's easy to try to multitask, like be texting somebody while you're sitting on the couch and talking to someone, or you're in a car ride with someone. You could be looking at your phone and kind of talking at the same time, but you're not really there.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed this like huge jump in what I felt like were really good conversations when I was just completely focused on that other person and what we were talking about and not letting my mind wander elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it did, you know, bringing it into the conversation and making it part of the present
Mm-hmm.
instead of like, man, I'm thinking about this work meeting, but we and you are talking about like what we did last night,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I told myself like if I'm thinking those things, I should be sharing it with the other person. Like, hey man, sorry, I'm like not here right now. Like I can't stop thinking about work.
Mm-hmm.
And then like bringing that into the present, I think was also huge because a lot of things go unsaid and like that's like part of to me conversation is like really showing what's going on with you to this other person.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only do that when you're really there with that other person. Um, so this podcast, to summarize, I feel like that was my biggest takeaway from starting this podcast because I felt like I had to do that in order to like make the content or to talk and understand and listen and kind of like pull the kind of conversations that we're having now. I feel like I had to learn that through this, and I think I wouldn't have. I mean, maybe I would have in some other way, but I wouldn't have learned it as quickly or as well if it wasn't for this.
I do like that. The idea of not being afraid to be like, hey, I do appreciate what we're talking about in this conversation right now, but like I have like other things going on in my mind that I just can't focus right now. And just having the courage to just be honest, right? Be honest and just tell them, hey, like I do want to be a part, and I like you said, I want to be in the present, um, but right now I have so much on my plate.
Mhm.
I think that step, or like having realizing that, is like a huge step, and realizing that you can do that, or like even just like things that we've talked about, like even when we first started doing the podcast, where we felt like it was awkward to make weird jumps into like straight points in conversation where point A may not directly relate to point B, but I mean, we're gonna take that jump, and just not being afraid to say what's on your mind.
Mhm.
But saying that, I completely forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, there we go, got it now. I think for me, my biggest takeaway was the idea of doing things with purpose, which I feel like really resonated with me throughout this year, where there are a lot of times where I caught myself thinking, why am I doing this? What's the point of me doing this? Like, even recently, like when we talk with Kim, is like, what do you do that drives you to wake up every morning? It's simple as that, right? Where something you do every day, but are you doing it for a reason? Do you have like a purpose? So the idea of making sure that you're always doing something with purpose, and if you're not being afraid to realign your goals to what you want, not being afraid to be like, you know what, this is what my goal was before, but right now I don't really want it that bad, but maybe I can keep going down that path and figure out how can I make that work for who I am now. And that's definitely like had like a huge effect on me, where it's like the idea of having like meaning is like super nice, right? Knowing that you have a purpose in this world, on this planet. But sometimes you may not discover it like early on, even later on in life. But you just gotta, like you said too, it's not about winning the game, it's about just playing it and just staying in it and just keep playing, keep grinding. So hopefully that still carries on within 2020 for all of us. Hopefully you all keep playing.
I really love that whole understanding why you're doing things and the idea that you mentioned of, reflecting on your goals and changing them based off of, do I still want this or not? Or let me redefine this into something that I do want. And like that all starts with understanding why you want to do it. I think that's such a huge portion of it. But I love that too, because when you start doing that, I also feel like you're able to say no to things more and like focus on what is important, because like you do have to give up things to get certain things in life, like time. I feel like this year more so than ever, what I've learned is like time really is like this resource that like you really have to treasure how you use it when you have goals or when you're trying to do something, and like protect those blocks of time. So like whenever we spend time on the podcast, I have to like make sure I save this hour. I feel like I've appreciated that so much more this last year, and it's made me be able to say no to things like a lot easier because I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that resonates with me for sure. And I feel like that makes looking forward into 2020 really awesome, because it's like setting it up for success, which is cool.
Yeah, I know there have definitely been times where there's been a mix of where it's been super cool to be like, hey, I can't do this because I have a podcast. I got to work on a podcast. This is like my normal work day. And it feels cool to say that. And then it just sparks a conversation. Oh, you have a podcast? What's it about? Blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But there are definitely times where it's also been like, I'm just like, oh, shit, I can't do this. I can't do stuff Monday nights because I have a podcast.
Yeah.
So it's a mix. But like, I wouldn't say I'm more like upset that, oh dang, my time block on Monday's taken because of the podcast, because I love this. I love the idea of just talking and like just having better conversations and deeper conversations with people. But like you said, unfortunately you can't devote your time to everything, right? You can't spread yourself too thin, because then you're just going to start half-assing everything to divvy up your time. You just got to whole ass one thing and give it your all.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what's also cool is when you understand why, and this ties to something that Ashish mentioned, which I think is really important, is like you can always apply the process of achieving a goal from one to another. I feel like when you start thinking in this way, when you start asking yourself why you're doing what you're doing, you can kind of connect your goals, so then the things in life like start to align better, which I think is really cool. Like, and a good example for me with that is like, for me, this podcast has helped me communicate better. And because of that, I feel like I can talk to Anton and Cody about Rocket League better. Like, we can communicate clearer. We can talk about what's going on. And like, it's also crazy because it's the same idea of like being in the present. Like, I can bring that to Rocket League too. I realize I play worse when my mind is thinking about work and I'm playing, or my mind is like thinking about a girl while I'm playing, or when I'm not just focused on the game. I could feel the difference, and I think it's when you start to understand why you're doing the things you're doing, you can tie everything together, and it like helps you just. I feel like it just like helps you live a better life. Um, so I think it's huge. I think it's really huge.
I did like what Cody said. His general takeaway was that we all have different struggles and are working through them. It's reassuring to know that none of us really have it all. And I think that's it's kind of like dark, but it's also reassuring, right? Where I go back to it a lot, where the idea of social media, where we have like the big celebrations for all like the good things, which isn't bad to do, right? But in doing that, we kind of hide, the small struggles that we're going through, whether that's day to day, whether that's like a culmination of time, and just like the realization of being like, man, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life right now? Like, I've been playing video games for 20 years, and am I gonna do anything out of it? Like, but yeah, it definitely feels good to know that you're not the only one struggling with a said issue. I feel like it happens too often where we feel like, oh, woe is me. It's just me suffering from this, and nobody understands what I'm going through. But little do you know, I mean, there's more likely than not, someone's probably either going through it right now or has already gone through it. So it's cool to see that we're all kind of working on our own path to success, and that we all have different ideas of where that end goal is going to be, how we're going to get there, and it's cool to see people's routes and how they're going about doing it, and like you said too, just kind of mimicking successful people and seeing, oh, let me try this because they've done it and it worked for them, so let me try this. But then in the end, trying to figure out how to personalize that and make that your own. Sometimes it'll work for you, and then sometimes it doesn't. But you never know until you go down and start building that path and find out at the end.
Mm-hmm. I think one other thing I would add to the cool thing about the perspective that Cody's talking about is I think it makes it easier to talk about our struggles or the things that we're working on and that we want to improve on, when you know that other people out there are struggling too, or working on something or finding themselves or whatever it might be. I feel like knowing that you're not the only one makes it easier to talk about, and I think it like makes all of us grow because it gives us an opportunity to like learn lessons from each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's like another big thing about this podcast I think is huge, is like I get to learn so much more about not just about other people, but like how they think, and like what you mentioned, Mark, is like look at the cool things about successful people, which I see like all of our friends are successful in their own way, in ways that I appreciate, and like pulling that out and making it work for me and like my perspective and shifting that. I think that's really really cool because it doesn't always have to be, some super famous successful person. Like you can do it with people that are close to you, and you can
do it
like
with just us.
yeah, and like all it takes is us being able to talk about it more and communicate and share it. And I think that's huge when you realize that people aren't perfect. They're also struggling. And I think it takes a lot of courage to start the conversation too.
Mm-hmm.
But all it takes is one person in that conversation to start that.
Mm-hmm.
And once they do, I think the ball starts rolling, and then you get this cool connection with that person because of it. But it's really easy to think, oh man, I don't want to share this side of me because it isn't good,
Mm-hmm.
because it isn't like a story. It isn't like something that we're all gonna like be impressed by. It's just like a part of me that I'm working on.
Or even like,
but
oh, this isn't aligned with like my character, right? Or this isn't aligned with how people perceive me, and maybe it'll be weird, or it'll be just mind shattering if I say something like this, right?
Mm-hmm. But it's like important because it's who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I that's like such an interesting conundrum to me, is the idea of like this is part of my character and not wanting to shatter it, but in reality, like the fact that you're going through that means it isn't exactly all part of like you do have weaknesses, and it's important to share those.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a cool one, Cody. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's funny because originally my idea with the podcast was to create a comfortable, like, safe space where, you know, it's happened to me a lot, where there have definitely been a lot of times where I've been like, man, I got so much on my chest and I just don't know who to talk to. I don't know who would be right to talk to about, like, these sort of things. And just it's cool to see that almost like other people would like that as well, right? Where we'd all like to come to the understanding that it's okay to not be okay and stuff like that. But it's tough. It's tough to like Andrew said, you know, it's super tough. 100%. It's tough to be vulnerable, and no one wants to be that person to show, you know, that weaker side of them. But I think, like you said, you know, that's a part of you. It's a part of you, at least in the moment. And I don't think that should be something that you should be scared to, like, show, especially to, like, your friends, right? There's a reason why they're your friends. There's a reason why that they're still your friends, even through all your good and hopefully not too many of the bad sides. But even when they see the bad sides, you know, if they're still friends with you, it's almost like you should know that they're always going to be there for you, but it's still incredibly terrifying to still put yourself out there and be vulnerable. Oh, I think you're muted. I see your mouth moving.
I was muted. Sorry, it's because I was coughing earlier. I must have forgot it. But yeah, I feel like the thing, it's really interesting because the thought process is like, if I show my vulnerable side or my weakness, like, will they still like me? Will that shift their perception of me to a point where they don't want to be friends anymore?
Mm-hmm.
But it actually always has the opposite effect. I feel like whenever you show that vulnerability or that weakness with someone, your relationship grows that much stronger because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, now you're relatable, or now, like, you're really sharing who you are with the person,
Mm-hmm.
and they can really accept you for who you are. So I think that's like, I think it's really cool. But I love the fact that it isn't easy, because I also don't think I don't think it's worth sharing with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's an opportunity to, you know, share it with the people that you really care about. That was something that Tati helped me realize actually more recently, was this idea. Like, we had a company party to go to, and me and her were talking about, like, how when you're in those things, it like feels fake. Everyone's just kind of like, oh, like, what are you doing for the holidays? Everyone keeps it really, really surface level.
Mm-hmm.
And I, like, was talking to Tati. I was like, man, I hate that. Like, because I like stuff like this, where you're sitting down next to someone and you're really talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
You really understand what's going on. You can share your vulnerabilities. And, like, Tati's point was like, yeah, but, like, do you really want to be that way with everyone? Like, do you want all those people to be, like, your best friend, or, like, are they just people in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you got to understand that it's just like this concept of focus and time. Relationships with people are the same thing. Like, you can't have everyone be your best friend and share all of yourself with everybody, because it kind of makes those relationships weaker, in my opinion. Like, it's important to share it with the people that are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that helps you strengthen it. It, like, distinguishes it, which I think is really big.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, like, a really cool realization, was like, you don't always need to share with everyone, but be willing to share with the people that mean something to you.
Yeah, yeah. Neil, you're trying to coach your nephew through dating right now. And trying to explain how it's okay to be vulnerable. Oh my, it's
in high school.
Oh my god.
High school, I feel like, was not a place to be vulnerable.
Yeah, man.
But it's, you're still 100% right. I feel like when you're in a relationship, you have to show your vulnerability. I feel like that's how you differentiate yourself also in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Is like giving your heart up to that girl or whoever.
Yeah.
And then that's the secret.
I feel like even now, even like past high school, Like I guess for me, I still feel super strong about that. Like where it's just like being honest and being transparent about things. Like like for me, it puzzles me sometimes where I'm like, do they really need to like lie and be like stealthy about this stuff? I guess for me, I feel like I've always been kind of honest and like true to like who I am. So for me, it comes easy to just kind of just say what's on my mind and just be honest. I feel like that's always the problem with like communication, right? Where we try to hide meanings with our word choices, and like it's always just it's scary to be honest. And again, like how everyone in chat's been saying, like where it's terrifying to be vulnerable, right? The idea of being vulnerable is that you're putting yourself out there potentially to be hurt, right? But I think there's like, I guess it's weird because when I think about it, yeah, it sucks when it doesn't work, right? When you put yourself out there, and with the idea of dating, you know, you put yourself out there, you put yourself in a vulnerable position, and then you get rejected, and then you're just heartbroken, right? But I feel like when it does work out, it feels so rewarding. Like even just like you said, just talking to friends, where when you realize you can be honest with them and you can be vulnerable with them, and you can open up to them by talking to your friend about it, it strengthens the bond between you, that person, or that small group. And that, like, I feel like that's, I can't think of a word. It's awesome, right? It's a scary way to strengthen like the bond of friendship, but I feel like in those troublesome times is when you really see, like, you know, who are your true friends, who's really going to be there for you. And again, going back, it's terrifying to initially make that step to, you know, put yourself in a vulnerable position. But I think, I guess for me, I feel like I'd rather be honest and true about, you know, who I am than to just always kind of put on an act and kind of hide it away. I feel like it ends up becoming more work to kind of hide it and mask it and just play pretend all the time. And worst case, you just get super drunk and it just all comes out. Well, shit, cat's out of the bag.
Well, I think there's another portion of it too, and I think a lot of times people aren't aware of it. Like I don't know. I'm sure there are people that consciously hide it, but I also think there's people that don't even realize that it is like a vulnerability, or it's something that like that is a weakness inside of them, or maybe they don't even know the words to describe it either. I think that's part of it too.
Vulnerable creatures take 50% more damage from attacks. It's too true, man. Too true.
This is true.
Applicable to IRL.
This is why dating is hard. Oh man.
I guess because time has flown by, and I feel like it always does with every podcast. But before we close, one last question I'd like to pose to you guys, and hopefully if you're just watching this later, even if you're in chat now, if you want to talk about it, comment on the video too. But if you can think about it now, because technically tomorrow's New Year's, right? Do you have any goals that you can think of for 2020? I guess to be more specific, do you have any goals that you would want to accomplish before the end of 2020?
Oh, before the end of 2020.
Yeah, before within the next 24 hours, huh?
I gotta go.
I got goals to accomplish.
That's alright. I think it'll be really cool to see chat and what they say. I think a lot of mine, I feel like I haven't really defined them yet. I think of course, one of the first ones is like Grand Champ in Rocket League. That is for sure before the end of 2020 is our goal.
Nice.
Um, I think, and these are still lofty because I think I still need to define them better, but I think there's, continuing to grow this podcast is for sure up there. The third one, and this is more of a 6 month goal, is like officially release our like notebook, like put it for sale. Um, is like part of our plan to do. I think by June is what we have. So we've already that one is cool because we've already spent the time to kind of do a
Give me
timeline and
timeline.
see, what are the how do we break it down into actionable steps and how do we like, make it into something in 6 months.
Hmm.
Um, so that's for sure a big one. And that one, like we were measuring it, we have an idea of what we need to do. But we actually just shipped out our like first couple batches. Um,
Yeah, no, I got it.
oh, you got one?
Yeah, I got one. I was like, oh dang.
Man, the wrapping is kind of bad. It was kind of funny. Me and Tati were like going to the post office, and we
Mhm.
realized we couldn't write on the navy blue envelopes.
I saw it. I was like, who is this from? And how do they address this to Almost Awesome Inc? And I was like, hmm.
Yeah, that was funny. Um, but yeah, so that was funny. We had to like rip off these like stamps at the post office and post them in so we could write on white. Um, but yeah, hopefully we can release that in 2020 June and put it for sale and have a finalized version.
Nice.
Um, so I think those are the three main goals uh, for me, at least that I know of.
True, true. I guess for me, I talked about it a bit in the beginning of the podcast where um, I want to work on just like having a more positive mental attitude. I feel like I've gotten to the point where um, my negativity ends up like my negative like mindset ends up seeping out a bit sometimes, where it's just like it's almost just like an aura, right? Where it just kind of like it kind of emanates a bit. And I know for me there have been a lot of times where just like hang out with people, there are times where I just feel like out of place and like, man, I just don't belong, and I get in my head about it and um, just switching that or like almost just turning that off, being like, no, that's just nonsense, and it's tough to do, um, but hopefully within 2020, I'll be able to figure out the small steps I need to do to adjust that and get my mind in the right place where, you know, I'm welcome among my friends. And like I said, step one is just building that confidence, building those positive affirmations, and almost overwhelming the negative thoughts with too much positivity.
I like it. I wish you luck. I'll try to keep you accountable too. If I notice that you're like out, not in your mindset or like in the right state of mind, I'll call you out.
True.
Now that I know. Now that I know.
Dang. Vulnerable. 50% more damage. Shit. Exposed armor.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, and thank you. Just saying, Cody and Neil. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your guys' support on it. Um, but yeah, hopefully the notebook does come out soon. You guys like it.
Yeah. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and close up shop. If you guys feel like you didn't get a chance to answer any of our questions during the podcast, please comment in the comments below. Comment on the video below, and just let us know. Let us know your thoughts, because like even though we try to have like a specific guest on the show. Again, I feel like I say this every podcast, but you guys, the viewers, the people who are watching it and who find value in it, really make this process and working on this worthwhile. Just even just hearing like the small bits and pieces where like people are like, oh yeah, I watched this last episode, or I feel like you guys are doing like a great job doing your podcast. Like stuff like that. It's a huge game changer. I feel like if I didn't hear small bits of that, even if I didn't hear like people like watch the podcast, or even people just knowing that people are in chat, like watching us live, it means so much. So seriously, thank you guys so much for helping. I would say specifically helping me carry on with this, and again, just making this what it is today. But I guess as well. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so like I feel like just echoing what you're saying, Mark. We'd love to hear from you guys. Like whether it is answers to questions or whether it is just hearing your support, like knowing you guys are out there supporting us helps push me and Mark forward. I think it's really huge. So yeah, make sure you like and subscribe the video.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Click the bell. Click the bell.
So you get notified whenever a new video gets posted or whenever we go live.
Yeah.
I guess as well, coming into 2020, we're still throwing it out there. We could use any sort of help possible to increase our production value, whether that's finding someone who can handle like our social media, our advertisement, getting the word out there that, you know, we do have a podcast. This is what we talk about. People like Cody who are just modding in chat, where I know for him, like he had to just look up like what do you need to do as a mod, and even for me as, you know, owner of this, trying to direct him as to what he can do as a mod. So if anyone out there wants to lend us a hand, any sort of help would be greatly appreciated. So do we go ahead and hit him with the classic closer?
No, I think Mark, you should take the 1 minute closer.
Ooh, okay.
For the last podcast in 2019.
Oh man, this is rough.
I'm also gonna test this out too. I'm going to just share my screen and see if this works as the timer instead. Oh, it does.
Oh, okay. Oh man, I can't even think of what I'm gonna say.
Those are the best moments. Let me know when you're ready.
I guess before we do that too, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, almostawesome_IG. You can follow us on Facebook as well, because I'll usually post there. Because I don't know if we have an Almost Awesome Twitter. I gotta figure that out as well. But I'll usually post stuff on our Facebook page about like the podcast, what's going on, and stuff like that. Trying to think what else. I gotta write like a closer, so it's not a huge mess. But
that's our 2020 goal.
If anything, I'll leave the links to, you know, how you can reach us, whether that's like our personal Twitters, our Instagrams, the Instagram for the Almost Awesome podcast, and everything like that in the description. But I think that's about it, right?
I think that is. And we will work on improving those in 2020 as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, I will, as you know, I will count you down. I'll do a 3, 2, 1, go. The floor will be yours, and you will close out our podcast for 2019.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
I've said this time and time again, but thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being a part of our conversations. It really means a lot to me. And I hope that you guys have been able to take away as much as we have being a part of the podcast, and just learning to have better conversations, having more meaningful conversations with people, and not being afraid to go ahead and you know, dive deeper into conversations. So like we've said before, not be afraid to dive into deeper conversations to get to know someone better, get to build a relationship with them better, and also get to learn a little bit more about yourself. So in 2020, let's keep talking, let's keep having deep conversations, and let's get to know each other better. Time's up, and we'll see you in 2020. Bye, everybody.
Bye.